They say retirement's when you slow down. But for me, it was the first time life really felt like my own. No sirens, no generals barking orders, just the creak of a gate, a black coffee steaming in my hand, the warm breath of cows drifting in the early mist. Bought this little slice of Texas before there was ever an HOA in sight. 15 acres of open field, a weathered ridge, and a lazy creek. Back then, Willow Creek Estates was nothing but a wild patch beyond my barbed wire. Then one day, the bulldozers showed up, and next thing I knew, a parade of beige houses cropped up behind my fence. Every single one a clone of the last. Taupe siding, plastic shutters, manicured lawns, the works. You know what I mean? Not a flag in sight, unless you count the college football banners they hung out front. For a while, it was all right. We kept our distance. Sometimes a couple of their kids would wander over to pet a calf. A dad and his boy once helped me bottle feed Daisy when she was sick. But I never saw an HOA board member until Karen Dupree made her entrance. Her voice traveled faster than gossip at a church picnic. The first time I heard her, she was lighting into her neighbor about a porch swing that didn't match the visual harmony guidelines. I thought it was funny at first. You want to police porch swings? Go nuts. Then came the signs, bright red, HOA enforced. Private access only, hammered right into my pasture, 15 feet past the fence line. I thought, maybe it's a prank. Teenagers, right? I yanked out the posts, tossed the sign back. But every week there'd be more little orange survey flags, strangers with clipboards walking my boundary like they were casing the joint. Turns out, this wasn't confusion, it was a slow-motion land grab, the kind where they hope you're too tired to fight. But I wasn't. I dug out my deed, checked my survey, county stamped, sealed, locked in stone. No ambiguity. My land was my land, period. But the real showdown started the morning I saw a circus tent going up on my south pasture. Coolers, folding tables, 2 porta-johns, and a sign in bold. Willow Creek Estates, HOA Nature Wellness. Weekend. Right smack where my cows grazed. And there, at the center, was Karen, hair like a helmet, red vest, wielding a clipboard like it was a badge. I walked right up, told her she was trespassing. She tried that sweet, patronizing smile. We thought this was community buffer space. Development maps say so. Yeah, well, the law says otherwise. I told her she had till sundown to clear out. She looked me up and down like I was the help. We'll consult legal, she said. I nearly laughed. Please do. That night, I watched from the porch, nerves wound tight. My herd was anxious too, bunched up on the far side of the field, eyeing the interlopers. At dawn, I grabbed my binoculars. The tent was still there, now ringed with yoga mats, wind chimes, half the neighborhood, dressed for a spiritual retreat, sipping from travel mugs. And there were new survey flags, closer to the creek, a perfect little grid, like someone had future plans. My chest burned. This wasn't about a wellness weekend. This was about carving up land, a slice here, a buffer there, until you wake up one morning and realize someone else's idea of community swallowed your peace whole. The final straw came late that night. My trail cams caught Karen and her lawyer buddy sneaking onto my field, hammering in more flags under cover of darkness. So I did what any old soldier would, documented everything, called my lawyer, Greg, a no-nonsense JAG vet who traded battlefields for property lines. You've got them cold, he said, but don't play all your cards yet. Next morning, I put up fresh, no trespassing signs, motion sensors, even got a little creative. One sign read, Pasture protected by bovine force. Local kids loved it, but the HOA? Not so much. For days, the air simmered. Karen filed a complaint, said my cows were a hostile perimeter. I guess she never heard a real warning until you've seen Lucy, my boldest Jersey, chase a granola bar thief out of the tent. That night, they tried again, this time bringing muscle, hauling fence posts and wire, sneaking in just after midnight. But they weren't counting on my herd. Lucy led the charge. The cows moved in, slow, deliberate, like an old Western. Karen's lawyer ran for it. Karen tripped in the mud, and the whole scene went sideways. Flashlights spinning, fences collapsing. Everyone yelling for the cops. When the deputies rolled up, they found Karen covered in hoof prints, shrieking about a cow attack. The deputy, old buddy from the veterans' breakfast, just shook his Head. Tom, you got documentation? I showed him the footage. He turned to Karen. Ma'am, you're trespassing again. That was it. Strike two. And just when you think people would back off, the HOA doubled down. They sent a letter, then a legal notice, then tried to paint me as a danger online. But the neighborhood was starting to see through it. Folks I'd never met brought cookies. A petition went around to kick Karen out, and the board fractured overnight. Turns out, the community was never really with her. They just wanted quiet, same as me. But Karen wasn't finished. The last twist? She tried to file a retroactive permit, forged my name, claimed I'd given verbal consent. The county flagged it, my lawyer called it fraud, and suddenly, we were headed for a real showdown, a county hearing, the whole 9 yards. That morning, it poured rain. I walked into the meeting with every scrap of evidence. Maps, emails, camera footage, even the petition from my neighbors. Karen sat at the other table, smaller than I'd ever seen her, lawyer at her side, spinning a tale about good faith and miscommunication. But when the footage played, her cutting my fence, screaming as the cows rolled through her illegal yoga camp, the room was silent, except for a few gasps. The board didn't hesitate. Cease and desist, a hefty fine, an audit of the HOA's every move. James, the neighbor, handed me a painted sign. Pasture protected by bovine force. I laughed harder than I had in months. Within days, Karen was out. She left the neighborhood. The board sent a formal apology, and peace, real peace, rolled back in like the sunrise after a storm. I planted a tree on the spot where the tent had stood, called it Sentinel. The land healed. The cows forgot. The neighbors stopped by for pictures, new families waved from the trail, and I finally slept with the windows open, nothing but the sound of wind through grass. You know, I never set out to become some kind of local legend. I just wanted to be left alone, to let the pasture stay a pasture. But boundaries aren't just barbed wire and county maps. They're who we are, the lines we draw not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And if someone wants to trample those lines, sometimes you let the law do the talking, sometimes you speak up, and sometimes you just let the cows show them who's boss. So tell me, what would you have done if someone tried to steal your peace, one flag at a time? Drop a comment, share your story, and if you've ever tangled with an HOA, let's hear how it ended. And don't forget, sometimes the best line of defense is 4 legs and a stubborn streak. But you know, peace on a place like this, it never stays quiet forever. Not really. A few weeks after the hearing, after all the drama, things finally settled into this new, almost eerie calm. Neighbors waving, cows lazing under the new oak, the air heavy with that kind of late summer hush you only get when everyone's watching, waiting for the next shoe to drop. There were still the drive-by gawkers, people slowing down on the gravel road to snap photos of the celebrity cows, and I'll admit, it made me smile. Even if Daisy started to act like she needed her own publicist. My inbox filled up with messages from strangers, some sharing their own HOA horror stories. Some just saying thanks for standing up. Even got a box of sugar cookies shaped like cows from a local bakery. Folks are good, most of them. But not everyone was celebrating. There were still whispers, still a few folks on the Willow Creek board who couldn't stand losing, and you could feel them circling, licking their wounds, plotting how to take back a little ground. Maybe just out of spite. One afternoon, not long after the dust had supposedly settled, I caught sight of Karen again, not up close, but across the field, standing in the shadow of a crepe myrtle, arms folded tight. Watching the cows like she was trying to count them, lips pressed so thin they were almost white. She didn't call out, didn't wave, just stared for a minute, then turned and disappeared down the trail like a ghost with unfinished business. That was the last I saw of her for a while, but her presence lingered, like old perfume clinging to the curtains after the guest has gone. Then the small stuff started, fresh tire tracks along the fence line, boot prints in the mud near the south gate, a few new survey flags staked out and then yanked up again before morning. Like they were testing me, or maybe just testing if I'd stopped watching. Of course, I hadn't. 30 years of Army life. You don't just turn off that sixth sense, the one that wakes you up when the wind shifts, that keeps you walking the perimeter at dawn, boots crunching in dew, checking every lock, every post, every single camera battery. My neighbors, the good ones, had my back too. Old James swung by every week with cinnamon rolls or just a thumbs up, and the new couple down the lane offered to check on the cows whenever I was out at the VA. You could feel this new kind of solidarity, like maybe this mess had woken up something in all of us, a reminder that the rules only work when everybody respects them. But then came the night I woke to another alert on my phone, motion detected, lower pasture, 2:11 a.m. I pulled on my boots, grabbed the flashlight and the old lever-action rifle, not that I expected to use it, but you never know out here, and slipped out the back door. The air was thick, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every sound carry. Out by the creek, my cows were huddled up, restless, heads turned toward a dim orange glow just past the stand of cedars. I crept up slow, keeping to the shadows, and sure enough, there were 3 figures in the dark, 2 with headlamps, one with a big plastic tote full of tools. I watched them drive in metal posts, run a line of wire, moving quick and quiet like they'd done this before. And leading the charge? Karen herself, hair pulled back, dressed head to toe in black, like she thought nobody would recognize her in the dark. I shook my head, almost impressed at the gall. I recorded every second on my phone, then whistled, sharp, just once. The cows stirred. Daisy let out this deep, rolling bellow, and suddenly all 3 intruders froze like they'd been hit with a spotlight. I stepped out, flashlight aimed low, calm as ever. You folks get lost. Or you just bad at reading signs, I said, my voice carrying across the wet grass. Karen spun around, panic in her eyes, but then she straightened up, tried to smooth it over with that same brittle smile. We're just clarifying boundaries, she said, voice shaking. At 2 in the morning? I laughed. If you want to argue about lines, let's do it in daylight, with the sheriff. One of her helpers, a tall guy in boots too clean for real work, muttered something about leaving, and in a minute they'd packed up and hustled back toward the neighborhood, dragging a spool of wire behind them like a scar. By sunrise, I'd already emailed the footage to Greg, CC'd the zoning office, and left a copy for Deputy Miles. Didn't take long for word to get around. The board called an emergency meeting, this time without Karen. She'd been voted out for good, replaced by someone who actually gave a damn about doing things right. Funny how fast the world shifts. When folks get tired of being dragged along for the ride. Life after that wasn't perfect, but it was real. My cows returned to their favorite grazing spot. The pasture healed. I finished rebuilding. The old gate, added a few more pasture protected by bovine force signs, just for the laughs. The neighbors, the good ones, became friends, folks you could call if you needed a hand or just a cold beer after a long day. And I found a kind of peace I'd almost forgotten existed, the kind you have to fight for, then savor all the more once it's yours. Thing is, boundaries aren't just about keeping people out. They're about knowing where you stand, about planting your feet and saying, this is mine, and it matters. Sometimes you use paperwork, sometimes you use your voice, and sometimes you let a herd of determined cows do the talking. Either way, you learn who your friends are. You learn what's worth protecting. So, yeah, folks still stop by now and then, asking for the cows versus HOA story. Sometimes I tell it. Sometimes I just point to the field and say, ask them. They're the real heroes. But every time I sip my coffee and look out over that ridge, sun breaking through the fog, I know exactly who I am and where I belong. And if you're reading this, maybe wrestling with your own little corner of the world, all I can say is, draw your line, stand by it, and don't be afraid to let a little chaos in if it means protecting your peace. Because sometimes the world doesn't back down until you show it you're not moving either. Now, let me ask you, where would you draw your line? Drop a comment, tell your story, and if you ever need a few cows on your side, you know where to find me.